unboxing of children.
Litkey said, and you cannot know a kid whose voice you don't listen to, whose interests are a mystery, whose family is excluded, and whose feelings are viewed as irrelevant to the education process. Yes, all schools must help kids gain knowledge, but they must also help them believe in themselves, believe in others, and love learning. In our current system, all children are taught in the same way. A famous quote by Albert Einstein states, "If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking that it is stupid." This is what standardized testing does to our students. It judges them based on scores in a specific area and labels them as adequate or not. According to Miller, children who have been told that they are stupid or careless may begin to believe these things of themselves and either act accordingly or not attempt new challenges for fear of
I think the
failing.
purpose of education is to prepare us for our professional careers after school.
I was homeschooled part-time of high school, and I got a one-on-one teacher, and this, I feel like, definitely prepared me a little bit for college because, I just had that one-on-one interaction with my teacher, and she just really helped me understand everything, each subject, really went into detail with me. And then I also went part-time school at the same time as being homeschooled, and this really helped me.
I'm here with senior education major Amanda Chung, and she's going to answer some questions for us today. So, Amanda, in your professional opinion, what is the true purpose of education?
I believe the purpose of education is giving students the opportunity to gain and learn not only academic skills but also intellectual and social skills in the classroom.
Our kids are being mistreated and abandoned by their schools, and too many are literally dying as a result. We have to save them, one kid at a time. The true purpose of education is to encourage our students to pursue their hopes and dreams. Unfortunately, schools often focus on improving standardized test scores rather than focusing on their students.
We all remember high school through a distorted lens. For the most part, we look back with sophistication on a time when we were quite flat in much of our thinking. Rick Ayers discusses this idea of how adults look back on high school and comparatively it is nothing like it really is. He discusses in his Chaos Theory the 5-paragraph essay, a standard that many high schools use as a measure of writing ability. He discusses how when he first steered away from using the 5-paragraph essay, students with newfound freedom didn't really pay much attention in class, or the class became a madhouse. However, after a short period of time, he discovered that students began to start paying attention again and actually doing the writing assignments. In doing this, he discovers that students were able to show more creativity and were able to express themselves better through more free writing. However, these days, teachers face a challenge in doing stuff like this, in that many schools still have a standard by which students have to meet in the form of written tests. Therefore, changing the way that they are evaluated for their writing could mean that they may not pass a standardized test. I make kids work harder than they thought they could. I can make a C+ feel like a Congressional Medal of Honor, or an A- feel like a slap in the face. In his discussion of what teachers make, Taylor Mawley discusses the idea that teachers make students work, and that teachers are meant to push students to the best of their abilities. Doing this by approaching each student and their unique situation differently. As he says, making a student who is successful and consistently gets A's feel bad about an A-, or he can make a student who is struggling to get passing grades feel proud of a C+. Teachers have the ability to impact the lives of their students and challenge them to do the best that they can. They never removed me, but said, "In high school, you'll get out." They always promised me, the next year, you'll get out." David Connor's Michael's Story is a great look into the challenges faced by students who face challenges from many angles, including race, socioeconomic status, and being considered a special ed student at school. Michael explains how he was stuck into special ed and became trapped. and the system never allowed him to get out. Along with challenges he faced because of his race, Michael's story demonstrates how it can be a challenge for the education system to cater to and address each student's individual issues. Immigrant families often do not choose to follow all of the traditional ways of the homeland, nor do they choose to follow all of the traditional ways of the new country. Instead, immigrant families often reinvent a unique family culture. Every child comes from their own special circumstances and faces their own challenges, in and out of the classroom, which can be hard for children to communicate to teachers, which is why it is important for the teachers to be able to acknowledge that their students do have their own struggles and be able to address and fulfill them wherever they can. Equality of opportunity means that all members of a society are given equal chances to pursue wealth and enter any occupation or social class. All schools strive to create equality of opportunity within their walls in order to provide every student the best chance they can to be successful. Schools may not be able to control for where students come from or what they have access to outside of school. However, they can provide students adequate resources within their schools in order to balance out any chance that students who come from a better, more wealthy background have the better chance of becoming successful. A major step towards equality of opportunity for students and schools, and just in society in general, would be if we could aim for all schools to be created equal.
Education is supposed to be the great equalizer, right? We're all told that if you work hard and do well in school, you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up. In this understanding of school, society creates a meritocracy, or a system in which hard work and talent is recognized and rewarded. In a pure meritocracy, two kids who work equally hard and have the same raw talent should do equally well, no matter what neighborhood they grew up in, no matter their race or gender, and no matter their class standing. On the surface, it might seem like the US has a meritocratic school system, but educational measures of merit, like grades or SAT scores, don't always measure everyone's talents consistently. Grades don't just measure an individual student's effort or ability. They're also influenced by many factors outside of the student's control, like the quality of their school or their access to resources, like books or computers. This is where social conflict theory comes into the story. Social conflict theory helps explain how our educational system can both cause and perpetuate class differences. In the United States, there are large class gaps in educational attainment. While 83% of students from high-income families enroll in college after high school, only 63% of low-income students do. So why the disparity? One reason is that wealthier kids tend to live in higher-income neighborhoods, which in turn fund better quality schools. This makes it easier to get into college. In the US, school funding is determined at the local level, and when I say local, I mean very local. The city or town that a person lives in determines the funding of their school system. While federal and state governments provide some support to school districts, most of the money comes from local property taxes, meaning that schools in towns with more expensive houses and higher earning residents have more resources. For example, Fairfax County, Virginia, one of the richest counties in the US, spent $13,700 per student in 2016. Compare that to what some of the poorest counties in the country spend. For example, Scott County in Mississippi spends a little more than half that amount at $7,900 per student. Unsurprisingly, schools in more affluent communities on average provide a better education than schools in poorer communities. Having more funding for a school allows schools to hire better teachers, buy more and better supplies, offer a wider variety of classes, and provide extracurricular activities. And these differences in school quality translate to differences in outcomes for students. We know this because of research like a recent study done by American economists Kirabo Jackson, Rucker Johnson, and Claudia Persico, which used a natural experiment, court-mandated school finance reform, to show this. They found that increasing school funding levels by 10% was associated with students earning 7% higher incomes as adults. And this is only one of many studies that show that access to better quality, better funded schools makes kids more likely to go to college. So is money the answer? If we just give schools more money, will that be enough to fix the class differences in educational attainment? Well, yes and no. School funding, or the lack of it, is part of the social inequality that we see in the US education system. But there are plenty of school districts that are already spending a lot of money per student and still struggle to improve their students' outcomes. So why is that? You might remember French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu's work on cultural capital from our episode a few months ago on socialization. Cultural capital is valuable cultural knowledge and experience that can be translated to forms of economic and social capital. Even if school funding funding was the same everywhere, students whose parents have the time, money, and knowledge to support education in the home will have a step up on students whose parents don't have the time or resources to pass on cultural capital. For example, higher income parents are more likely to read to their kids and spend more time interacting with their children even at very young ages, which leads to kids entering school with a more robust vocabulary and better literacy skills than their less affluent peers. By the age of 3, children of professionals have vocabularies that are 50% larger than those of children from working class families. Children from different class backgrounds are also exposed to different expectations about the path that their lives will take. If you grow up in an upper middle class neighborhood where your parents and all your friends' parents have college degrees, you're much more likely to expect that you'll go to college too, and you'll prepare accordingly. Recall the self-fulfilling prophecy from last episode? This is one way that works. But for people whose parents didn't go to college, expectations for attending college may be lower. It may also be much harder to navigate applications for college, understand how the financial aid system works, or register for courses, all distinct barriers to attending college. This specialized knowledge is a form of cultural capital. So schools and families unfortunately often work together to reproduce social inequality. Kids with parents who have more time or money to devote to education in the home are also the kids most likely to be in well-funded, high-quality schools.
The real world is built around giving feedback and showing people what they need to do to improve, not giving assessments. Test makers eliminate the exact content that teachers have emphasized and students have mastered. There is no one indicator of success that fits every kid. Assessments don't define any one student, focusing more on positive feedback than on a letter for a grade. Schools use grades to assess students in almost everything they do at school. They get a grade for a paper they write, or a math test they took, or a science test they took. They're graded all the time with everything. You don't see this in the real world. You don't see supervisors telling their employees, "Great job, I'm going to give you an A for the day," or "You really screwed up today, I'm going to give you a D." In the real world, adults get feedback and indications of where they need improvement. Grades are just so meaningless. Let's say, for example, you have a kid with a C+ grade average. What does that mean? Does it mean he has a D in science but an A in history? Or does it mean he's really bad at math but is a great writer? Grades are totally subjective to each student. Grades reduce students' interest in learning and make them want to focus more on getting the letter grade than really learning the material. Schools need to look closer at each student's accomplishments and gaps. It is only when we can connect something new to something we already understand that we actually learn. Children have so many talents that us as teachers don't even understand half of them. Students get educated out of being creative, focusing on what makes each kid unique, trying to discover how each student learns best. Transforming schools, one student at a time, treating everyone alike differently. Schools need to allow kids to learn through their own interests and pursue their passions. Schools need to run in a way with a philosophy for one kid at a time, giving the effort to figure out where each kid is at and develop their learning from there. Schools need to have the right teachers who are passionate about their work. We need to change schools from teaching kids subjects to organizing curriculum around interests and learning goals. This will help give students a framework they can develop the skills and the ways of thinking that will promote success and build a desire to learn more. A school must be like a living organism. It needs to be changing all the time to fit different students' needs as they arise. The school needs to continually look at itself, questioning its operators, and always making adjustments as need be.